that they're looking for, but it's making sure that we have reliable software that functions as promised and software that's free from security vulnerabilities and malicious code. Because CIOs are understanding their enterprises being put at risk through the software. And Deloitte came out with their global security survey on shifting the paradigm. And this was at the end of 2007 to focus what is it that financial institutions should be focusing on in 2008. And it's well aligned with what we're doing, but they're specifically saying that decisions in software development lifecycle significantly impact financial operations. Even those of you who are not doing software development, the development is affecting your financial operations. And they identified the fact that they realized that application security is the #1 issue for CIOs. Information security team must continuously raise the bar on secure software development by examining software development internally, demanding trustworthy software from vendors and business partners, and ensuring that applications have adequate controls and audit trails. And they're wanting to make sure that people can start focusing on the development activities even as consumers. And that's why they say, as organizations acquire, outsource, and implement a host of applications, they must recognize and mitigate software security risk. And that means ensuring secure code integrated at development stage. So you're going to see more and more focus from CIOs asking, how was this code developed? And so the needs for software assurance. We recognize the fact that the life cycle for software introduces many opportunities to either poorly designed code or to insert malicious code. Both government and businesses rely on commercial off-the-shelf products, both from foreign and non-vetted domestic suppliers. Now, it depends on what industry you're in, because you're going to hear some people say, well, foreign's bad. No, it's not. That's the reality. We are in a global market. And you will hear some people say, we need to start bringing things back home. Well, what we're really dealing with non-vetted domestic suppliers, just because you're US-based, you have all US developers, even many with security clearances. If they don't know how to develop secure products, they're just as much able to put you at risk as others. So the idea of saying bringing it back home is not going to make it better by itself. But offshoring does magnify the risk. And you have to be aware of it. And it's not just because you might find some malicious insiders there, but it's really about the laws are different. And we've talked to some companies that say they're willing and they know part of their business model. They lose 70% of their intellectual property by offshoring it because they can't protect it once it goes there. So they've tried to bring back the core of what they're trying to do back home to make sure they're controlling that. But consumers, and that's both in government and industry, we lack information on suppliers' process capabilities. They're fundamental business practices of controlling their development. We cannot adequately determine the security risks that are posed by the supplier's products and their services, both to the acquisition project or, more importantly, to the operations that are enabled by that software later on. There's a limited number of practitioners that have the requisite skills in this area. As we go around to many universities to talk about making sure that this gets incorporated into computer science courses, software engineering courses, MIS courses, and other IT-related fields, we're actually finding out there's a bigger risk. And maybe many of your companies have found this is true. We're actually having declining enrollments in IT and software-related curriculum. And why is that? Well, there's a misperception out there that says that if I go into this field, my job in the future is at risk of being offshored and outsourced. But do you realize that today we have a larger demand for software and IT-related disciplines than we had even during the dot-com boom? You just have to look at where they are, but the perception is we've been offshoring that. But actually we have a greater demand for it here today. So what happens, employers, as they try to find these people, can't find them in their market where they're at. And so even when they tried to backshort, bring it back home, they found out I can't find the requisite workforce here, so they kept it overseas. That's like a self-fulfilling prophecy then. So we've got to understand that we have a demand for this. Now, if you're purely a programmer, I will say that's where you're at risk. Because we really are looking for the things beyond that. It's like in the old days, it assumed that you knew how to type. It wasn't that you were hired as a typist, but you had to have that skill. If you're coming into this field of anything software, IT related, there's an assumption that you understand something about programming. You may not be hired as a programmer, you may for part of it, But if you think that that's the only thing you're going to do, perhaps that is the one that's at risk. We are looking for people who are network administrators. We are looking for requirements engineers, the test engineers. These are the types of skills that we need that are core competencies within our enterprises here. And we also know that few process improvement capability appraisal methods even address security. And our current education and training is lacking, as I mentioned. So what if we change the paradigm to really provide more code transparency? Well, it would say that government, working with industry and academia, actually raised expectations for product integrity and the requisite levels of security, that we helped advance the methodologies for software assurance diagnostic, as well as promoted those methodologies and tools. And it means that our acquisition managers and the users would factor in the risks that are posed by our supply chain as part of their trade space. Again, you'll never be 100% secure, but it says we have to have information about suppliers' capabilities, their processes, and we have to be able to have information about evaluated products. The reality is most people cannot evaluate all products to the level they'd like to. But I will tell you, as a taxpayer, one week when we went around to 2 different federal labs testing software, they were testing the exact same product. And I said, you know, as a taxpayer, what's wrong with this picture? Why is it that we can't share information about evaluated products? And what if suppliers actually delivered quality products with the requisite levels of integrity and made assurance claims about those products relative to safety, security, and dependability? Well, that would mean that we'd have to have relevant standards to be used on which to base the business practices, because today we don't have any minimal levels of responsible practice for software. Jeff pointed that out earlier and said we need to have some standards in this area. What means that we'd have to have qualified tools used throughout the life cycle to enable both developers and testers to mitigate the security risk, and that we'd have standards and qualified tools to be used to certify software. Now, believe it or not, we actually postured our organization to be able to start setting this up by working with industry, with labs. We actually have organizations who are willing to certify software relative to the standards that we'd give them, the criteria that would be tested, about relative to having qualified test tools. And I'm going to talk about how it is that we're going about working with NIST and other standards bodies to actually qualify tools to be used in this so that you can make assertions about the quality of your products. And it would also mean that we're in a position to be able to have qualified test engineers in this area as well. And so that's the way our program's been set up. Probably one of the only guys who have part of my job description signed out by the president that said, as part of our national strategy to secure cyberspace, that DHS will promulgate a public-private effort to support best practices in the area of promoting integrity, security, and reliability in software code development. And the way that we structured that program is to focus on trustworthiness, dependability, and conformance. And again, we've been working with the various bodies to do that. And if you want to find out more about that, you can go on to Wikipedia, type in software assurance, get the various definitions and links to all the various initiatives that we have. But it basically is looking at no exploitable vulnerabilities exist, either maliciously or unintentionally inserted, and that we have justifiable confidence that software, when executed, functions as intended. So from a software assurance perspective, it is not purely a software engineering discipline. If you go to IEEE software engineering body of knowledge, they do not address safety or security as a normative part. So we literally had to go to the safety and security community to derive the practices. The Project Management Institute provided through the PMBOK their body of knowledge, and we've integrated the various disciplines, not to create a new discipline called software assurance, but says these are all the requisite practices that we need, and to be able to go back to them and to be able to provide the enhancers, like with IEEE with software engineering. We're creating new knowledge